may be able to recall that top brass of the opposition time to time predicted the imminent fuel shortage in the country since last June. But for the last 7 months, with great difficulties, we were managed to ensure uninterrupted fuel supply. Day by day, I do admit that day by day, situation is getting more and more challenging. This task is of course very tedious, difficult, and so far we have managed to ensure the uninterrupted fuel supply. Frankly, I must admit that day by day, I now feel that situation is getting near impossible. So the rest of the month of January is really challenging because we are seeking 2 credit lines. I must thankfully acknowledge the support given by PetroChina with 6 months credit for the shipments purchased from them, and they are but having 6 months credit line, we were not able to open LCs for those shipments, and sometimes our ship is in the Colombo port. Still we are struggling to open LCs for those cargoes. So situation is really difficult, and we need $400 million for a month to meet our fuel bill. So $400 million means around 40% of our export income. And on the other hand, most of the export income doesn't come through official channels. They be used by importers and other people who want to send money out, not here, but outside the country. Because of that, I must admit that we are in a very difficult situation. So far, we have ensured the uninterrupted supply of fuel, and I have promised the country that don't believe these rumors. If there is going to be a fuel shortage before anybody else, I will come and tell the nation that we are going to face this kind of a situation. Situation is really difficult, but so far we have been able to manage it. Hydropower's contribution for the national power generation until end December was around 55 to 60%. Usually January to April is the dry season for our wet zone. As a result, hydropower generation is drastically dropping at this moment. So usually we replace it with the diesel and furnace oil power plants. At this moment, we do have stocks sufficient for another 20 days, and we have to open letters of credit for importing furnace oil and diesel for power plants. As I just informed you, I am in a difficulty in finding foreign currency for the retail requirement of petrol and diesel. So I can't take the burden of finding dollars for the CEB as well. So I have requested Minister Gammanpila, you procure dollars, I will provide the oil required by them. This is the arrangement. They have agreed to do that, but first LC is to be opened next week. So whether they are in a position to procure dollar as they promise is a thing to be tested in the next week. Firstly and foremostly, as you know, we have 99 tanks with a capacity of 10,000 metric tons each, built in 1920s, nearly 100 years ago. These tanks were subject to decay for several decades. Though, since they were in Indian possession, we were not in a position to touch those. There was an unsuccessful attempt in December 2016. Then our CPC employees were detained by the Indian LIOC employees. So there was a very unpleasant incident took place at that time. So we didn't have access to those tanks. So having such a huge asset in Trincomalee, we were struggling to find limited resources to build new tanks in Colombo, mainly in Colonnava and Muthurajawala, and Sapugaskanda, of course. So, the first advantage is the CPC will receive 24 tanks for its use. Therefore, CPC will be able to distribute petroleum products to the areas such as Northern Province, Eastern Province, North Central Province, Monoragala, then Kurunegala from Trinco instead of from Colombo. Because of this change, we can save at least 1 billion rupees for a year. Secondly, 61 tanks will be developed as a joint venture. As a result, we can use these tanks for so many different purposes to earn foreign currency. Those 61 tanks will not be used for any local requirement, but for international requirements, such as, firstly, we can rent these tanks to the governments who want to maintain higher reserves to ensure their energy security. Usually, we have the fuel stocks only for several days, but ideally, a country should maintain 3 months stocks as a to ensure the energy security. Secondly, there are investors who purchase petroleum products when the prices are lower, store somewhere and sell when the prices are higher. Just like the share market, petroleum market also fluctuates heavily. So people who, as an investment, they play in the market, buying at the lower prices and selling at higher prices. So those investors need storage facilities. We can rent these tanks to those investors. Thirdly, we can rent these tanks for storing any edible oil, then biogas. Sri Lanka has a huge potential for hydrogen, especially green hydrogen. Green hydrogen would be the future energy instead of petroleum products. Within next 30-40 years, entire world will be using green hydrogen, or at least hydrogen, to run their vehicles. So we can use these tanks to store hydrogen. So there are huge potential. As you know, Trinco is a very sunny district. We can use this huge area as a solar farm to generate electricity. Then we can use this place as a historical value. Once it was the largest tank farm in the world, and in the 91st tank was destroyed by Japanese during the Second World War by dropping a bomb. So for tourism purposes, solar power generation, we can use this place for different activities. This new joint venture, Trinco Petroleum Terminal Ltd, will first have a feasibility study. Thereafter, they will prepare a business plan. So those business areas will be considered by the management of this company when they prepare their business plan. That company's mandate is different. Firstly, its mandate is to store the products and distribute throughout the Sri Lanka. So its focus is local business. But this tank farm company, the exclusive business would be to maintain a tank farm. Secondly, in the CPSTL, CPC holds 2/3 against 1/3 of the LIOC, but here 51% to 49%. So these tanks have been given. Firstly, in 1987, President Jayawardena has agreed with India to develop and operate this tank farm jointly with India. So we have an international obligation or bilateral obligation with India to develop jointly. Secondly, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe on 7th February 2003 leased out these tanks to India for a period of 35 years. That's how they came to the possession of these tanks. So, if there were, then again in 2017, Malik Samaravikrama Susma Swaraj MOU, Sri Lanka agreed with India to lease out entire tank farm, 99 tanks, to LIOC for a period of 99 years. So, Sri Lanka was under obligation to India in respect of this tank farm through 3 agreements. So, I had to negotiate with India in this backdrop. So I can't. If I can ignore these agreements, I would have taken an entire tank farm to Sri Lanka's position. I love to do that, but unfortunately, there are 3 agreements signed by previous governments, and I am bound by those. No, not. But we have to look at the present agreement in the backdrop of the previous agreements. Now, previously, entire tank farm was with India. We can't do anything. Now, at least we can use these tanks for our use. 24 tanks will be used for our CPC's benefit. 61 tanks will be developed to earn foreign currency, much needed foreign currency for the country. But there are still restrictions. I love to have a free, independent business venture instead of having different conditions being imposed. But unfortunately, because of the previous agreement signed by the previous governments, my hands were tied. So many. Firstly and foremostly, as the Minister of Energy, I presented a dream to this nation. I told our people that we have gas and oil in our country, and I further explained that just only in Mannar Basin we have petroleum resources worth of $300 billion, where our entire national foreign debt would amount to $47 billion. So we have a huge foreign currency crisis. I presented a solution. People were thrilled with that. But unfortunately, in this agreement, Sri Lankan government has agreed to offer the supply of LNG to our power plants to New Fortress Energy forever, indefinitely. With that, whoever come to Sri Lanka as a potential investor to mine our petroleum resources will not have the opportunity to sell their product in Sri Lanka. As you know, gas is not like oil. Gas is very difficult to transport, it's very difficult to store. So ideally, it should be used soon after it's being produced. Usually they take out of the tank, then through pipelines, take to a power station or fuel pumping station for vehicles. So a lot of countries use LNG as their transport fuel, then domestic use, industrial use, whatever. But here we deny the biggest bulk market to the potential investor. By doing so, we discourage a potential investor to come for oil exploration in Sri Lanka. Secondly, as you know, in the recent past, USA tried to use economic tools such as economic embargo to force Sri Lanka to do certain things what they want to. For instance, they wanted to introduce a federal constitution to Sri Lanka. When we said no, they brought resolutions at the UNHRC with the threat of economic embargo. Now, New Fortress Energy is a US company, so US get a new opportunity to force Sri Lanka to do certain things what they want, with the threat of sending the country to total darkness by denying the LNG supply to Sri Lanka. So then those are the main reasons, but there are other supplements like this. If you look at the sale of 40% of Yugadanavi to a New Fortress is a very shady deal. Why? Now in this transaction, gas supply is New Fortress Energy, and Yugadanavi is one of the gas purchasers. With 40% share, they are going to take the management interest of that company. So in the end, both the buyer and seller, when they meet to negotiate the prices, quantities and all that, both are under control of the New Fortress Energy. But from the supplier's side, 100% is owned by the New Fortress. From the purchaser's side, only 40%. Then obviously, all decisions will be made in favor of the supplier. This is against our national interest. Those are the reasons we are against New Fortress Energy deal. So, I'm sorry, there's one very important thing. It's a good governance issue as well. Sri Lankan government floated a tender for supply of to build the infrastructure for LNG supply by way of a FSRU. As you know, FSRU stands for Floating Storage and Regasification Unit and Pipeline. When there is a company which has gone through this tender procedure and secured the project for installation of the pipeline and the FSRU, the government has all of a sudden decided to offer the project to a company which never participated in the tender procedure. Is this the good governance that we talk about or boast about? So this is the first time in Sri Lankan history we have given a project to a company which has not participated in the tender procedure. So this is a significant deviation from the set procedure for good governance. Those are the issues for which we decided to go against this deal. I listened to the submissions of the councils of both sides, and I am confident that Supreme Court would cause justice to this nation. Well, in the month of September, or either 5th or 6th September, a cabinet paper was presented at the very last minute. Then both Minister Dalasala Perumal and I requested to postpone by one more week to submit our observations, but that opportunity was denied and we gave only 24 hours to give our observations, but those observations were never discussed at the cabinet meeting. Then again, in the month of September, so I'm sorry, that one was month of July. First one was in month of July. Then second one was in month of September. It was a Zoom meeting and we never received the cabinet paper. So there was no discussion. But when we received the cabinet minutes, it says it was discussed at length and it was approved. Not only that, cabinet decided to consider the minute was also approved. So there will be no opportunity for the ministers to discuss about that issue again at the next meeting. So, frankly, we as a result, we have not seen the cabinet paper before placing the signatures. Thereafter, of course, it was tabled at the cabinet. Then only we saw it and we perused the document and we found a lot of lapses. We sought another meeting. We were denied that meeting as well. Then only we decided to hold a public meeting in Pitakotte and tell the public about this agreement. Thereafter, of course, we decided to tell the truth to the Supreme Court as well. We know the risk of going against the government, being a cabinet minister. Three of us discuss in length before taking this decision. We know, we assess we are fully aware of the risk and we assess the risk and we decided to take a calculated risk because for the benefit of the people, in the name of good governance, in the name of securing our country. So we know we are at the risk of being sacked at any time. and we are ready to face it.